Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talking Tech with Creative Podcast. My name is Stella Oni. This is where we discuss the intersection of technology and creativity. And I've got an exciting guest for you today. I'm always forgetting, but I think we're on must be the 18th episode or 17th. Do you see how well I do my things? Anyway, so I've got Micallar Walker here of Dark Matter Agency. We're going to discuss all things marketing and the way she's doing it. But normally I always do a kind of intro to my technology. I'm looking at you and my brain is a bit blank today because there's so much going on out there and I don't even know which one to pick and which one to unpick. And normally I talk about AI a lot because that's what is on the scene at the moment and the development of technology. Just going on from the last talk that I had, there's lots of adoption of AI in industries. I just want to say that to a lot of people because in the creative industry, especially when it comes to the arts and the writing, um, creativity, the writing part of things, there's quite a lot of reservation to do with AI and the fact and how generative AI was created. So there's a lot of pushback. And I think that's the idea of us being able to come out and say, this is the kind of reservation we have about this, and this is how we want the government to ensure that creatives are part of the conversation. That's important. So when this podcast airs, the consultation by the British UK government on the AI and how copyright works would have finished. So that would have finished. So I won't be able to say, go and do that consultation, go and do that. I might maybe jump on live somewhere and just remind people that there's a consultation going on AI and copyright. But what I want to say is that Forbes carried an article about copyright. So AI assistance and copyright in America. So anything that has the human assistance and copyright is in America, the copyright belongs to the human. So if the human being does not, if you solely generate your work through AI, that is the AI generates the work for you. That if you put it out in the public, then that is not your copyright because it's generated solely by AI. And if you put it out in public on the internet, on the web, then anybody can use that. But if there's human assistance in generating your AI, so you use your AI as an assistance and your creativity is in there, then that copyright belongs to you. That is the American copyright law that Forbes carried. So that's what the article was all about. I was reading it and trying to absorb it to try and summarize it for you. So this is why I'm saying that adoption by industries is going very quickly, very fast. And in terms of adoption by writers, I'm not saying go and use your work, get AI to produce your work. I solely produce my work. I like my writing, I solely produce my work, but I get it checked. I have tools, writing tools. We writers, we have Pro Writing Aid, we have Grammarly, those tools that check our writing for us. And then I generate ideas. I use ChatGPT and some other tools to generate ideas and generate some marketing things that I can work on. But if you're solely generating your work with AI, that's up to you. That's your choice. I'm just saying for now in America, if your work is AI assisted in any way, that copyright belongs to you. So that's what I'm going to say this week. The next one, I probably will have more to say because I always have a kind of news. Because last time we talked about driverless vehicles that are going to be operating, because I called it almost autonomous vehicles, driverless vehicles that are being tested at this moment in Cambridge. And I was thinking that because I do some part of my work in Cambridge, I was thinking that maybe I'll be brave enough to try and jump on one of the vehicles and see how it feels. So I might be doing that. Adventurous me. If I don't do it, maybe I've been chicken. Anyway, so that's all for my kind of intro this week. I'm now going to bring Micallar in. Micallar is the founder of Dark Matter Marketing Agency. She supports writers and film in terms of marketing, and she does this in a way that is very innovative and creative. She came to my attention, or I came to her attention through a mutual friend. But funny enough, I'd actually read of Micallar in an interview she did on the bookseller. In a bookseller, she did an interview, and I read that, and I was quite interested. But how you read something and then you forget about it. And then when she popped up and her name popped up through a friend and mentioned, I said, "Oh yes, I remember her." And I thought she'd be a good one to interview for Talking Tech with Creatives, just to see how she navigates this thing and tell us a little more about how she started and where she's going. So, without much fanfare, we'll be introducing Micallar. Welcome to Talking Tech with Creatives podcast. I love having you. I love those funky glasses you're wearing and the color.
Hi, Stella. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. But Stella, before we get started, there's two things I wanted that you talked about in your introduction. The first being the driverless cars. And now I'm not sure, I'm in Dubai, so I'm not sure if they have this in the UK now. When you can order food on Talabat, which is like our Deliveroo.
Yeah.
And it can be delivered via a little robot on wheels. So it will go from the community supermarket. And I've been driving and I've had to stop at a zebra crossing for a Talabat robot that's delivering snacks to somebody's home.
No,
So
have not.
Oh, okay.
God.
Yeah. It's the real thing.
How do you spell it?
The company that delivers it is called Talabat.
So how
and it's
T-A-L-A-B-A-T.
Yeah, Talabat. And it's basically like Deliveroo.
Oh my God.
But here.
So what do they look like? Are they small? Are they big?
It's like a cute, it's probably, I would say, 60 centimeters square. And it's on wheels. And it's like just a little mini, like a robot and on wheel. And it goes from the supermarket to your home.
When it goes to the ground, how does that work with vehicles on the road?
I don't know. I've been driving in my car and I see one coming along and I stop at the crossing to let it go past. So then it obviously has sensors, and it can obviously, once it's at your front door, it can alert you that it's at your front door and your goods are at your door. You open the robot, you take your goods out. Delivery complete.
Look at that. So I'm in the UK and this is all new to us. So I'm sure audiences around the world, if you're listening, because I've got audiences around, listeners from around the world, they'll be thinking maybe we're even backward, because look at how, like, I'm talking about driverless vehicle and I'm like, oh my God, it's coming to Cambridge. It's such a big deal. And you're talking about this delivery thing happening in Dubai.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. If it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen in Dubai.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. So I thought I'd share that.
Have you got driverless vehicles yet?
I have not seen a driverless vehicle yet.
Yeah.
In Dubai. But I'm sure it's coming.
Wow. That is amazing. What was the second thing? Did you remember?
I've forgotten now. I was just like, you talked about it in your intro.
So I talked about the copyright, AI and copyright, creating your work.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask is, how do the authorities know that it hasn't been solely AI generated?
I don't think the authorities will be watching out for that. I don't think, but remember that there are platforms like maybe Amazon. So I don't know what Amazon because when people want to publish, they go to a platform to publish, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, and then they publish in another way. So I don't think there's I'm not sure if there's anything, any kind of, what's the word for it? Any kind of way that the government are watching that to see what percentage of your work is copyrighted and what percentage. But through a platform, say like Amazon or any other kind of platform, maybe at some point they will have something that would be looking at that.
Yes.
I'm saying that if it's solely generated by AI, because they're not saying don't put your,
Don't use it.
they're
But
not
it's
saying
if
don't
it's
use it.
solely generated.
Yeah, if it's solely generated, they're just saying this is copyright now. So they're not saying don't publish it out there. They're just saying that the work that is fully generated by AI is out in the public domain because it's AI generated, and the one that you have an input into is your copyright. So that's where we're at now. That might
Yeah.
change, yeah, that might change in the future. And I don't think there's any government agency nobody has the time to be looking at whether it's fully copyrighted or whether it's generated by you. But you have publishers, you have platforms.
Yeah.
Yes. So all of those ones, maybe at some point we're able to check. But I heard that those site checking tools are not as they're not as good in checking whether a work is solely generated by AI or not. They're not that.
Well,
So people have complained that written their work. Sorry about that, Micallar, that they've written their work and they've been told it's AI, and then the AI ones have not even been spotted. So we don't know how
right.
things are at the moment in terms of that. But I don't think government would be supervising
No,
or looking at that now. There's nothing like that at the moment.
interesting.
Yeah.
My husband is in education. He's told me that there are tools to check the students' work.
Yeah. Well,
That they have tool at I don't know what to check if essays and assignments parts have been generated through AI.
yeah. The funniest thing was
Mhm.
that article in Forbes. I wish I've got it somewhere. It's a very recent article because I just read it off here. Was saying that actually they were talking about how education. So they were looking at different industries, and one of the things they said was that how education should adopt it. That at some point, the students who adopt AI as a tool will outstrip the students who don't. So what they're saying,
Right.
education, what they're saying within that article is that education needs to accept that there will be AI generated, there will be AI assisted work. So let's say you give an assignment, that student will use AI assistance.
Yeah.
Right. So that means that what the tutor or lecturer is looking out for will be something different. So if the student generated that work by AI, what's the logic behind it? I come from an IT background and I did programming. So, and I remember someone, I know we're deviating from what we're
Oh
saying,
yeah.
an interesting one. I remember an interviewer was saying that who are interviewing developers who are coders. And he said that I don't mind you using using AI to develop your codes because ChatGPT can develop good codes.
Yes.
Meaning
No.
that codes that when I started my degree, the codes that I was doing now, ChatGPT can generate it. So he's saying, I
Right.
don't mind you using AI to generate the code, but you, just like maths, must tell me the logic behind it.
Yeah.
Generated a code, you must step by step tell
Yeah.
me how you came to this conclusion. So that's where the direction education is going to go to. So education, the tools, you cannot forever be looking at whether your students have generated tools by their work by AI or not. But you can say, okay, you've done this essay. You are looking for something different in that essay. Now you're looking for deduction. You're looking for the human aspect of the essay. So you're not
Yeah.
move whatever has been produced by the student, but what are the human elements that have been put in? What are the things that the tool cannot do, AI cannot do, that is in that essay, in that
Yeah.
work? So that's where
Fascinating.
education is going to move in that direction because it's going to move in that direction where
Yeah.
they're going to say just use AI, but it doesn't mean you can get away with it because now we know now we are going to be looking at something different from you. We're not looking at what we normally look at now.
Yes.
So that's the thing. So anyway, let's go away from AI talk AI every week and talk about dark matter agency. Micallar in
Yes.
Dubai. Enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah.
How did you start? Tell us about that.
Yeah. I
Like
started.
background. So yeah.
Yeah. My background is in film and cinema. I worked for a Picture House Cinemas for a very long time, around 12 years. And Picture House is the largest independent cinema network in the UK. And at the time, that I worked for them, they had, I think, 26 cinemas across the UK, 7 in London and the rest regionally. And when I joined,
It's in film, because picture house, isn't it? Theater.
yes,
So in America,
cinema,
yeah. So cinemas, or in America, you call it theater. Yeah.
theatre, yes,
Yeah.
cinema chain.
Okay.
And I joined as an assistant to the director of programming. So I was an executive assistant, which was a great place to start because it meant that I was able to see all of the various areas of the film industry. So programming and exhibitions, being able to see what goes into the different cinemas and why. And then also seeing from a distribution point of view, the deals being made at the various film festivals and how the films make their way from the festivals into the cinemas and then from the cinemas to find their audience. So I was
Mhm.
able to see like the whole ecosystem.
Yes.
Being an assistant, like entry level what roles are really important for cutting your teeth and learning the business. And by the time I left Picture House, I was head of events for the entire group.
Wow.
Yes. So I worked through various marketing roles and audience development roles. And then, yeah, when I left, I was in a big role, head of events. My husband was offered a job in Dubai, and we thought, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? We hadn't ever been to the Middle East before, but it was a good career opportunity for him in education. So we moved with a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old to Dubai, and I landed a great job. Not landed, I was very qualified for. I accepted a role as head of marketing for Front Row Films, who are a huge film distribution company in the Middle East, and I was looking after film marketing campaigns for Middle East and North Africa.
Mhm.
And I did that for a few years, and then COVID hit. And yeah, and I was made redundant because of COVID, because all the cinemas here in Dubai and the Middle East were closed. There wasn't a role for me because my job was to market the films that were going into the cinemas. And with the cinemas being closed, yeah, there wasn't a role. But I always say that it was a job
Bless.
that I loved doing, but it was the job that brought me to starting my own agency.
Blessing. It's a blessing. Yeah. You know.
And so
Yeah.
while Dark Matter isn't I wouldn't say it's a COVID baby per se, but it definitely, yeah, I did a lot of the groundwork during COVID to build the agency.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I want to take you back a little bit more, because my
Yeah.
got a mixed audience, and I'm going to have younger people looking at you and
Yeah.
getting to know your background. So, as in, okay, you started in Picture House, you started as an assistant. Uh,
Yeah.
and I just want to go back, tease it back to the very beginning. What did you like when you were in school? What did you study? What made you come into this area? What were your dreams when you started?
Yeah. I studied English language and literature and film and sociology at college. I didn't go to university. I landed my first job when I was 18. I worked for a tech PR company called Axicom.
Mhm.
And then I worked for another tech company called eLogistics, which was the most fascinating company. They managed freight transportation up and down motorways, and it's all about maximizing freight.
Wow.
And they were one of the first to have freight management tools. So I worked in their PR department, working with lots of their supermarkets and goods companies to promote why using a freight management system was good for them. And it's basically just making sure that only the right amount of freight is going up and down the motorway at the same time. It makes such good business sense. I Those were like my very first roles. And I suppose like, but I think communicating and talking to audiences is what I'm passionate about. I think I lost my way a bit in those first few roles, going more into tech. But what I loved was being able to write press releases and write really engaging copy and making freight sound sexy. That was what I was good at. I was good at making something that's pretty boring
To some
sound
degree.
sound cool. But my heart was in film and cinema. My dad used to take me to the cinema. He's passed away now. He used to take me to the cinema. He was the first person to take me to the cinema. The first film I saw was Footloose, starring Kevin Bacon. And it's about a town who have dancing has been banned from this town. And so all of the young people gather in secret to dance. And it's silly, but it's quite a special film to me. It's the first film I saw. And I just, ever since then, have loved film. My dad was a black belt in karate, so we used to watch a lot of kung fu films, a lot of Bruce Lee films, a lot of westerns. So I grew up watching films. And so when it was actually my tutor at college saw the job for Picture House and said, "Hi, Michaela, I'm not sure what you're doing at the moment, but I've seen this job. I think you might like it." And I remember when I went for the interview for Picture House, and it was for the assistant for the director of programming. I had no idea that it was somebody's job to pick the films that go into the cinemas that we,
That's it.
yeah, it blew my mind that someone
From
had such a, yeah, programming. It blew my mind that it was
power, well,
somebody.
that's power as well, isn't it? Because you choose what is that subjective? Because now I'm sure they'll use analytics and whatnot now. They use tools now. But I wonder, was that subjective in the beginning?
I think at the time there is an element of taste and what you
Yeah.
like and putting what you like forward. But I worked for a wonderful woman called Claire Binns, who was the director of programming at the time. She's now the managing director of Picture House, and she has great taste in film. She likes the kinds of films that change people's lives and that teach people things and that open up a window to something that you probably never knew anything about. And so I came up under her learning how to program cinemas and how to bring cinema to different audiences. And now you're right, there are tools that if
Analytics.
it's in, yeah, films come out every Friday. So if a cinema was half empty, then that film that the tool tells you to put it into a smaller cinema and then you can maximize revenue that way. But I
Yeah.
think at the beginning it was very much about taste and also reviews.
And in terms of commercial, how did she balance taste and commercial aspect of the cinema? Because cinema has to make money as well. So how do they
Yeah.
work out what makes money or what doesn't? Do you stand out in America first to say, oh, this has hit the box office in America. We might have it or we might not have it. Did you use America as a kind of baseline?
We did in some parts. Picture House is independent cinema network, so it's a lot of their business is on independent cinema, so not the mainstream
Mm,
titles.
mm,
So a, a lot of foreign language films and a lot of films made by filmmakers that might not necessarily hit the mainstream. A lot of it was decided on reviews and if it's done well at a film festival.
yeah.
And then the big tentpole films, the Marvels and the huge big studio titles, you can generally gauge. A lot of them are released, we call it day and date. So
Mhm.
it's released at the same time as the US. So you can't rely on statistics from the US all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you generally get to understand your audience and know what people are going to show up
Mm,
for.
that's interesting. I love your background. I'll tell you something. Was at the mall. And then COVID came. So, yeah, because so now we know that COVID happened.
Yeah.
You were out of a job. You were in lovely Dubai. So, how did the idea for Dark Matter Agency start? What was the gem of the idea that made you decide, okay, I'm out of a job now. I want to start this?
I had been doing some consultancy work for cinema companies in the UK while I was here
Mhm.
during COVID. So there were still films being released during COVID. Film companies had reached out to me in Dubai and said, can you help us do some work online, digital campaigns? So whether it's like an IG live with
Mhm.
a director or sharing it on Dark Matters Instagram or things like that.
Mhm.
So I'd been doing that, and also just like some consultancy work. So putting them in touch with different organizations that might be able to help spread the word about their films. And then I just thought, if I started a company, a limited company, I can do this on a bigger scale and I can make more impact
Mhm. Mhm.
if I put a name to it. And if I had a website, and then I could really grow this. And that's exactly what I did. I decided on a name and transferred from being a freelance consultant to having my own company. And the the first projects that I worked on were mostly film,
Mhm.
but I worked on a friend of mine that works in the publishing industry said, Mick, we need this in publishing. We
Mhm.
need we need to reach Black audiences. We need books to reach Black readers. And so I dipped my toe into trying to reach Black audiences through publishing. And the first book I worked on was Sarita Domingo's Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was the first campaign I worked on. And what I did with that campaign was I stayed well within my comfort zone of cinema by working with Everyman Cinemas, who are like a boutique cinema chain in the UK. And this was still during COVID. So I reached out to my cinema contacts and said, why don't we use your database and I think we did an International Women's Day campaign. And we did an IG live with some of the authors from the anthology, and we just brought them all together. So we merged publishing and film. So
Fantastic.
we brought the film audience, tens of thousands of audience, and we merged them with the authors of some of the stories from Sarita's anthology. And we
Yeah.
brought it all together, and it was hugely successful at a time when most everybody was online.
Oh, new markets. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah, so that's what kind of made you go for like marketing to Black, looking at Black storytelling. So I,
Bella, I must just correct you there, because I think a lot of people think that that Dark Matter centers Black storytelling. And we do, but that isn't we center Black audiences from the African diaspora because we read everything. We read and we go to see films with predominantly white casts, and we read books by white authors, and we go to exhibitions by white artists and non-global majority creators. So my preference and my raison d'etre is reaching Black audiences across all art, films, art, and books. But because the industry is quite short sighted, I'm really only approached to work on things by Black authors and Black filmmakers, which I absolutely love.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think sometimes they see it's that way rather than,
One way. I see what
yes, yeah,
you're saying is that, which is when it comes to people, readers, I read and I read across different. I'm a global reader. I read everything that comes my way. And
yes,
some of my reviews, I focus some of them on, say, maybe crime fiction, and then I take it from there. But I understand what you mean by the audience as opposed to the stories. The stories can
yes,
come from everywhere, but
yes,
audience is focused on Black.
yeah.
What are some of the barriers you faced in terms of trying to do what you're doing? What were the
Yeah.
challenges?
Budgets. I think that art matter is sometimes labeled as, once they understand that our focus is on Black audiences, I do get a sense that budgets are smaller than, yeah, budgets given to us or offered to us are smaller than if that wasn't our um, niche, say. Um, so, yeah. And also just, I think the way that people work with us, particularly in the beginning, I found it to be um, quite disorganized, not detailed brief, just, oh, we'd like you to do this. For me, I need to understand what audience you want us to reach, because we're not a monolith. So it's just like, do you want me to reach a young audience or an older audience? Are we looking at audiences from a certain area of the diaspora? I feel like sometimes everything was just
Together.
lumped in together. The work that we do is very intentional. So I like to nail the audience and get exactly to where we want to be reaching.
So do you think that comes from not having enough people who understand what you're trying to do? Because if you had
Yes.
enough people of color in the industry, maybe they will understand better that it's not just lumped, you're just not a monolith, but you're looking at different aspects of things.
Yes, absolutely. When, yeah, when I was interviewed by the bookseller last year, that was one of the things that came up. And I said that, I think controversially, I said that when I work with people of color in publishing houses, it's an experience that's a lot more, it's more nuanced, it is more creative, because there is that shared lived experience.
Mhm.
And I have also found it to be a very enjoyable experience when the people on the other side of the table also look like me.
Because they understand, there's more understanding
Yeah,
and a more understanding of the nuances.
absolutely.
Mhm. In terms of, I was going to ask in terms of when you're doing your strategy and you're looking at mainstream, because most marketing agencies that I know, apart from yourself,
Yeah,
there's another person that does marketing, but I think she's not as focused on, I don't think she's focused on, I'll try and remember her name, you know.
yeah.
But yours, how do you go about doing what's your strategy for targeting a Black audience?
My strategy is the same as targeting a white audience. And it's really understanding the subject matter. So whether it's a book or film, understanding who it is we're trying to reach. And my strategy is shaping campaigns that reach that audience in a slightly different way, with Black audiences at the center of it. We, for example, we would try to find out, uh, let me give you an example. So for the first campaign we worked on, Who's Loving You, the strategy around that was, it's March, so it's International Women's Day. So we know that a lot of people are going to be talking about women's subjects. The spotlight's going to be on that. And the strategy was about making use of the fact that everybody was at home because it was COVID. So utilizing technology to reach people through an online conversation, and then continuing that through having a newsletter and information that went out to people afterwards, and then clickable links to track people purchasing the book. So that the strategy was to make use of the fact that everybody was at home and that it was International Women's Day. And that fed into the theme of the book. The strategies change depending on what we're working on.
And of course, when you started during COVID, and of course, things have changed now, and the means of reaching people have changed because people are no longer as much they're online more now than before COVID. So, how are you reaching those people now that you haven't got more? Everybody was focused online during COVID.
Yeah.
Everybody, now their attention is dispersed. So, how are you managing that?
I think that people want to meet in real life. There is definitely the people do want to meet in real life, but it's quite hard to manage it because doing in-person events is difficult. To get people to show up is hard. It's hard. So I feel like if you have to have a well-known person, or you have to have some kind of surprise and delight or gifting, something that's going to draw people to come to the event. I think people are very much online. If you look at how many hours people are spending on their phones, they are online very much, but not, they're online in a different way now than they were during COVID. During COVID, you would put the kids to bed and then at 8 o'clock, you knew you could sit down and have an hour-long conversation with someone or watch a conversation, and that was your entertainment. But now people don't necessarily want to do that now. They want short little bites, as
Mhm.
TikTok has shown. They want these little micro bites of content. Our attention span is a lot shorter. We can go out and meet people in real life if we really want to. So I think with each campaign, it's just trying to work out how, what, what works best. I'm still a fan of IG lives because what I like about them is that the live just sits there. Like you might only have 25 or 30 people tune in live, but when you revisit that live 2 weeks later, it's had 300 views.
Take care.
I,
So people
I,
in their own.
yeah, I love that. And I love that people can revisit the conversation and comment. And also I like to use lives as part of my strategies because I can go back to a live that we did maybe for a hardback campaign. And when the paperback's out, I can go back to that live and share it. Like, hey, if the paperback's out, check out this conversation. So there are different ways of engaging people with content that's already out there. But I love IG lives. I'm all for them.
Yeah. So we've been talking about, even though like this is talking tech with creatives, and technology is a big part of this conversation, and
Yeah.
social media is technology. So you talked about IG Live. I want to bring social media into this because it's part of your strategy, and
Yes.
your algorithm can play all sorts of tricks on all of us in terms of how the technology companies behind it change their rules and how things are viewed. So how do you navigate a changing landscape when it comes to social media changes? Because that could affect your business.
What do you mean? Sorry.
For example, TikTok
Yes.
was shut down at some point in America, came back up. So let's
Yes.
say you were doing your campaign and you're using IG or you're using Facebook and they are not there. How are you going to be reaching your audience?
Oh,
What's the,
okay. This is the thing. I always say that dark matter it's not a social media business. If it all shut down tomorrow, dark matter would still exist because we also are a community. We have our newsletter and we communicate with our subscribers once or twice a month. And we have an insane open rate of 67%, which is three times above the national average open rate. And that's because it's all relevant and we know our audience, we know what they want to read about. It's not a review. It's not our own personal views on things. As an agency, I don't see that as our place. It's about awareness. So telling people what's coming up, what's out. And also, yeah, so I feel like we work with MailChimp, which is fantastic. It's really creative. You can be really creative with it. You can analyze um, campaigns. It reminds me to send my campaign to all the non-openers. So
Very
The
good.
Yeah, and I rely heavily on that, and it also tells me when's the best time to send the campaigns, which is
Mm.
always on a Sunday at 8 p.m., which is the time that everybody seemed to be online, and I guess everybody's home preparing for the week, and they're just like, okay, open. But yeah, I tend to not. I feel like social media is a place that we can be really creative, and I really enjoy creating content. The last thing we created was a list of 12 books that contain messy characters. So we had Wahala
Yeah.
and Little Rock by Kweke Mezi, and it was really fun. We have a lot of fun creating that content, and it was really well received. But I just see it as a space to have fun, to engage, but it's not the cornerstone
Yeah.
of what we do.
And I want to touch on kind of storytelling, how you use your storytelling to market, to do your marketing. So how does that work in terms of creativity? You're using, like, looking at, I'm trying to word my questions right.
Yeah.
So how do you shape your marketing using storytelling? So, for example, the kind of thing like when you talked about doing a messy characters, that's a kind of storytelling, isn't it? Because you
Yes, it is.
read those
Oh,
and you had seen that some of those characters were quite messy, and you were able to create something out of it.
yeah, I think what it was,
Uh,
the reason that came about, and I cannot remember the name of the singer, but there's a really popular song out at the moment called Messy. And this girl, I did a deep dive on her. She's a British artist. The song is so popular. It has crossed over. My kids know the song. It's on all of their PS games and whatever it is they're playing. My daughter's doing the dances to it. So I
Oh,
thought, and then it's on the radio when I'm driving them to school. And then I thought, okay, messy. And I love what she's singing about in the song. So that came about, the storytelling came about because it's just hit me in so many different parts of my everyday life that I thought, and then I looked at my bookshelf and I thought, there's so many messy characters. Everybody loves a messy character.
yeah.
And that's how the storytelling just came from my life and the music. And then it just all fit together beautifully. So I feel like with the storytelling, I try to meet the audience where they are, because I figured if my son is hearing this song and my daughter's dancing to it and it's on the radio every time I'm driving the kids up and down, then that's probably happening to a lot of my audience too.
Mhm.
And so I knew that there was a connection there. So the storytelling came that way. Yeah, I try and meet my audience where they are. The storytelling is like with the events, I try to just put the whatever the creative is at the center of it and work out, what does it sound like? What does it look like? Who are we bringing in to do the catering? What does it taste like? The DJ, like all of the different sensorial feelings, and we build a story around that.
You're speaking my language. Talking about sound, would you ever, especially with what had happened in the Grammy Awards, look at what just black artists just swept
Yeah.
the ground? So would you ever go into music, or you're going to just stick to film, or do you think you expand to music? Or that was quite interesting. What's going on out in the music?
It's so interesting. And I always said that if I was going to run my own business, that I don't like to put labels on stuff. So when we started, it was film. Then very quickly, it was literature. Last year, we did 3 art campaigns. So we worked with National Art Pass. We worked with the Dulwich Picture Gallery. So we did 3 art campaigns, and music. There's so much crossover with music. At the moment, we're doing a campaign for the British Film Institute, who have programmed an incredible season of Black Westerns. And it's called Black Rodeo, programmed by Dr. Mia Mask.
When is it coming
And
up? I'm looking forward to that. I'd love
yeah, it's out now and it's showing now and it runs until mid-March. But with Beyonce winning Best Country Album at the Grammys, and with artists like Shabuzi, Nigerian artists like Shabuzi, bringing out country songs and being on the front of Forbes magazine. Literally about to do a post on Instagram that shows how country rap music interconnects with Black Westerns on screen. So it's to answer your question, yes, we would work with music because it all crosses over, I think.
And of course, Western, what do you call it? Country music started
Yes.
from Black. It actually started from, yeah. So it started the playing of banjo, the banjo. That was how
That's right.
it started before it moved into mainstream country music. So
Yeah.
I started reading because I will go into the rabbit hole and read everything I can over a subject, and I found out that country music started from Black banjo music playing and all that, the starting point. So that's interesting.
I think it's why this says Cowboy Carter album is so important for the politically, socioeconomically, artistically. It's very clever what she's done there, I think.
Very.
Yeah.
Do you use any kind of tools, or do you plan to use any kind of tools in the future for your business? What are your plans for in terms of using like technology for your tools? Because you're very quite using technology at the moment. You're in Dubai and everything you're doing is fine. I'm speaking to you online using technology.
Yes.
When we're in exciting times now. Are you going to be exploring technology for your work to do
Yeah.
more?
One of the things, a very good friend of mine has suggested that I start a blog and that I explore SEO.
Okay.
Yeah. And when she suggested it to me, I was absolutely terrified and about SEO. And I think because I'm terrified, I'm definitely going to do it because it's an area that I don't really know much about, but it could help grow the business. And I like the idea of having a blog on our website and being able to have another way of communicating with people that's outside of social media.
So I actually had an episode. I'm trying to remember. I think it's episode 13 because sometimes I
Uh-huh.
mix up my episodes. But Abidemi Sanusi, she's an expert on SEO. You
Oh,
might
okay.
have,
I'll
even if
write.
I even if I mix the episode number, the number up. Her name is Abidemi Sanusi. We talked about storytelling. We talked about how she started with SEO. So yeah, go have a listen. Go have a
I
listen.
will. Yeah.
And in terms of blogging, it's just a matter of putting your words together, and you have your SEO that's very good. Especially if you're on, I don't know if you're using WordPress or anything that would look at your SEO. So it will look through it and see whether you are SEO rich or not. So there's tools within WordPress or within some of the that you can use that will check your SEO for you once you've written your blog. If it's SEO
Nice.
rich.
I won't be writing anything. I will be working with writers
Yeah.
to write things. But yeah.
Writing, yeah. So if you're
Thank you.
working with writers to do the SEO, they will make it SEO rich. You know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's not going to be, and that will be picked up on Google. And then
Yeah.
you can also, if you want to, write some things on certain platforms that are quite, because they're very strong and well-known platforms, so they get picked up very quickly. So the same topic that you've written for the site you could write it differently, write it on a different platform to reach a different audience, and because
Yeah.
that would backlink to your blog. I'm very good at those things like that.
Oh, this maybe I can hire you and you
Let's
can
let's
help me
let's
with
talk
this.
about let's talk about it.
Yeah. I'd like that. Yes, please. Also, I mentioned MailChimp before. I know that I'm only using 20% of the of MailChimp functions.
Mhm.
So I'd really like to delve deeper into that and work out how I can do more about reaching audiences through MailChimp and our newsletter. I think there's more to be done there.
I think with those kind of the newsletter tools, it's more about you understanding your audience. So what you can do There's so many places that look, guys, I told you I'm starting my Patreon. This is what I'm talking.
Yes, I'm signing up. I'm
Yes.
signing up.
You can analyze your audience using AI tool.
Yeah.
And take a sample of your newsletter and just say what audience.
Yeah.
What is the audience for? Well, analyze what are the core messages here, and who do you think the audience is that will read this? So it's just a way of analyzing your reach. There are different ways that you can do it, and it will just give you an idea of who would be willing to read that and who you're reaching.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
if you use Facebook, Facebook is very good at segmentation. So you can segment, you can reach a certain audience if you want to on Facebook. Very much.
I don't, I'm not, mm, I
I know.
think if
I
I could, if I could run my business metaless, I would. I'm currently locked out of my Facebook account. I have been for 2 years. I'm quite happy about that. I can't get hold of anyone at Meta to help me get back into it. I've stopped trying now, but if I could not be involved with Meta, I would. And the same with X.
There are different ways that you can reach your audience. You're already using your newsletter. You can use different kind of AI tools to automate. So we have what they call AI agents. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about in my Patreon, where you're going to use an agent to automate your business, to automate an aspect of your business so that you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. So there's so many things. So we'll be talking off camera.
Definitely. Yes, please.
So now we're getting to the end of our talk because
Oh, that was so quick.
no, when I said getting to the end, as in we're winding down because we're
Okay.
by time now. I think we've done like over half an hour, but I'm going to ask
40 minutes.
a of about 40 minutes. So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask a question around you doing a campaign. You've done some campaigns. What are
Yeah.
how have you been surprised with your own campaign? The ones that have taken off, the ones that haven't taken off, and what are the lessons you've learned from them?
Yeah. I feel like the ones that haven't taken off, I see all of them as just learnings. For me, if two people engage with the work, then it's a success. I think that one of the things I always try to find out from the studio or the publisher is what their measurements for success is, what metrics they're using, so that I know that I've done a good job based on what they're looking for. Like recently, we did an event together, Stella, and there were fewer people there than we would have liked, but we can't control the weather. And I think that played a really big part in why there were less people there than we liked. That was something that I worked very hard on, but there were not as many people there that I would have liked. But I also know that for the people that did attend, it was an incredible evening. And Nina Badreshwar, whose book was the
The awesome.
lead title, I know that having the event meant so much to her. So for me, I was very happy, and the comments I got on Instagram the next day, I was very happy. I think one of our first campaigns was for You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty with Faber, Akwaeke Emezi's a romance novel, and we created a whole day of activity. We had a book club and we had spoken word poetry. We curated a library of romance novels. We took over a pop-up space. We had food and influencers came. And although probably altogether only about 40 people came, which was what we wanted, what was surprising about that was that it was a campaign that had legs. It's a campaign that people still talk about. This was over 3 years ago now. And it's something that people still talk about today because the impact of what we did was so strong, because we went straight to the heart of the book. And also it was one of the first times that Black book influencers were centered so intentionally and had activity shaped so beautifully for them, that people still talk about it. That was a very special campaign to Dark Matter. I don't, I would say that it, we haven't done anything that's felt as as really impactful in that way. We've had other, like lots of other successes, but that was a very special one, I think. Probably because it was the first.
And I wanted to ask in terms of, the thought came to my mind. Yes, in terms of, because I talk about technology a lot on this podcast and I talk about creativity because I feel they go hand in hand. But, and it's like I keep preaching it again that even though there's technology, there's community and there's
Yeah.
authenticity. And I can see that what you're doing is you're merging both community, which is very strong. Look at what you said. You did a campaign 3 years ago, 40 people, and the word of mouth community.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
So that is what you're doing. That's your win. Your winning thing is just using the technology. You're wrapping. You have that as a thing, but you've got the community, which is strong.
Yeah.
What advice do you give people that are starting out just the way you started out? What advice do you give them? Young people just starting out, thinking about what they want to do.
I would I would say stay true to your morals and your ethics. But for me, everything that I do, the people that I work with, we're all aligned. So I would say find people who are within your friendship groups, or that are trying to do the same thing or similar thing. Surround yourself with those people and collaborate. Collaboration is really important, I think. And also, for example, if you have a friend that works in tech and you say you're in publishing, working together, collaborating and pooling your audience and your resources means that you're learning from them, they're learning from you, and you're bringing two different audiences together. So I would say like collaboration, staying true to what your ethics. I treat people. An old boss once said to me that you have to be like really hard and mean to get anywhere. You have to be like tough. And I don't agree with that. I think being kind and treating people the way that you'd like to be treated is a really good thing to do from the very beginning. That's how I run Dark Matter. It stood me in good stead.
That's profound. And I wanted to ask, because in terms of, we're centering Black audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, there's something powerful in somebody knowing that I exist, that somebody targeting me, and I'm responding to that. And yeah, due to that, there were a few things that came to my attention in some of the campaigns you've done that are like, oh, that's interesting, and it's come to my attention because I've been centered. But the world seems to be moving in a certain direction. So what's your advice regarding this idea that the world is moving away from, like, there was also talks about being inclusive in so many ways, and it seems like it's like almost like
Yeah.
reverse of that. What do you give young creatives out there, and the audience in general? What do you say to that, to what is going on in the world?
Yeah, I would say that it is going backwards. I would say that everybody was banging down Dark Matter's door as we emerged out of COVID after the murder of George Floyd. Dark Matter was hot. And I would say that the focus centering like diversity and inclusion has definitely started to wear off. But I'm really happy to say that it hasn't really affected Dark Matter because we've done such great work and built really good relationships that we're now not, it's not a tokenistic, we're not a tokenistic hire. People can see that our work works.
Mm.
So I would say to them that yes, the emphasis is off of diversity and inclusion, but that means that we only have to try harder and keep going. A lot of the work I do, some of the work I do is involves collaboration and partnerships. And I have seen so many Black-led organizations and platforms close and fold. And when you go to their Instagram platform, 2023 was the last post, and that's because there's not enough funding, there's not enough help, but Black people setting up platforms and trying to run businesses alongside doing their day job. There's not enough support, so it's hard to keep it going. I've been really sad to see things fold and close down. But even I would say the thing to do is to be consistent. And if consistent for you is doing something once a quarter,
Then do
then
it.
then do that, but do it really well. If consistent is saying it's an annual project, do it annually. I think try not to take on too much
Mhm.
and expect that there's going to be a lot of pushback. I've grown a very thick skin. So now the no's just literally just go over my head. I'm like, okay, thanks, bye. And then I'm on to the next thing. No's at the beginning used to cripple me. I'd be like, oh no, they don't want to work with me. What? Oh. Now I'm just like, okay, thanks, bye, you're lost. And then on to the next thing. So grow a thick skin, be consistent, and yeah, be consistent.
And we talked about technology because, of course, I still come back to the fact that it's technology. You're reaching out, you're in Dubai, and it's technology that is making you be able to run your business because you're using
Yes.
different tools out there. So, I want to know your vision for the future because the world is your oyster. The world is huge, and Black audiences are all over the world. So, what's your vision for dark matter for the future in terms of?
Yeah, my vision is most of my work is in the UK. 95% of my work is in the UK. I have this year, and we're only in the start of February, secured 3 projects in the UAE so that my aim is to start doing more stuff in the region here because I don't want to travel and be away from my children so much. And also because there's such a huge African diaspora community here that I should be serving in the Middle East. My plans for the future are to take dark matter internationally. A lot of our newsletter, looking at our engagement, we have a really big audience in America. So I would like to do some work in America. I'd like to do more work here in the Middle East. And yeah, I'll be focusing on taking dark matter to wherever there are Black audiences, which is everywhere.
Okay. So I'm going to move to juggling, because I know you mentioned it before we recorded about your children and your family. So how do you juggle work and family life and all that? How do you manage yourself?
I think that anyone that says, I think I try to balance everything, but it's anyone that says that they can balance running their own business, being married, having 2 children, having a social life. It's impossible. I think on the days that I'm a really great mum, the business suffers. And on the days when the business is, I do an incredible 3 days with the business, I've probably not been as um, around as much as mum and a wife. I balance it with a very understanding husband. My kids are like my biggest cheerleaders and incredible support from them and really good friends. But also just because I love what I do, I absolutely love it. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So I, but it really, it really does. It really doesn't feel like work. When I come off today, I have to write a newsletter when I'm finished talking to you. And I'm really excited about it because I know what's going in. I love the creativity of deciding how it's going to look. And I'm really excited to do it and then send it to the people that are paying me to do it because I know it's going to be really good.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Well done for the juggling act. And I always ask this question about everybody because I have my passions. I have things that I'm passionate about. I wish I spent more time with those things. So aside from your
What are
what
those things for you, Stella?
I used to decorate cakes.
Okay.
To be mad about decorating cake to the point that I actually, because when I was starting out as a writer, it was so frustrating. I was going over my old journals from years ago and looked at and I found out that things that I wrote years ago, I'm still doing now. So we never are doing, yeah, things I wrote years ago. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh my God, it hasn't changed. Those are like 20 years ago.
Wow.
So someone said, oh, go and do a hobby if you're getting frustrated in your creative journey. So I took cake decorating very seriously, and I actually went to college, go and do sugar craft and everything. So I can decorate like wedding cakes. I can make different things with cakes.
Oh my gosh.
And
There you go.
I used to run a blog called My Cake Results, where I did everything cake. I used to go for cake exhibitions. I went to Italy. I went to different places that I was going to go to India. I was going to make it big, but I found out that my passion
Wow.
was not as great as my passion for my writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I garden when the weather. I try to do gardening in the UK is hard with the bad weather. But yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
about reading and reviewing books. But yeah, so what's your passion? See, I've gone on and talked about it. I was asking you the question. What's the thing you love?
Going to the cinema is everything to me. And I noticed that I was feeling a little bit flat last week.
Mm.
I thought, what? And it's because I haven't been to the cinema for a while. I love going to cinema. I go on my own. I like to go on my own, and I like to go and watch 2 movies in a day, sometimes 3 movies in a day, triple bill.
That's a passion. That's definitely a passion.
I love it.
What kind of movies would you watch?
My favorite genre is horror movies. It's my absolute favorite. I
Oh,
love
serious?
yeah, I love being scared in the cinema. But yeah, I love documentaries, romantic comedies, but my favorite genre is horror.
Bro,
Yeah.
wow. It's always good to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Always
I think it's because also the moment that the lights go down and the film is about to start, I have a feeling that never goes away. The anticipation and the excitement. Every single time I go to the cinema, I've been like 40 years of that feeling. It just doesn't go away.
awesome. Awesome.
Mm.
You know something, we've actually come to the end of the podcast. So I'm going to ask the listeners
Yeah.
want to know how they can connect with you. Which platforms are you most at, and what's your handle?
Yeah, I would say if you want to connect with us on social media, you can connect with us on TikTok at Dark Matter MKTG. And we are on Instagram, the same handle at Dark Matter MKTG. And you can go to our website, which is www.darkmatteragency.co.uk. And you can sign up to our newsletter there as well.
Great. So you see, look, this like I'm following Michaela's journey. I'm just blown away by what Dark Matter is doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. So go find out there. We're going to add everything we add all the links to the show notes so that you can follow her. And if you're a publisher or someone somewhere listening to Michaela, here you go. Business, there's someone to connect with. Take
Thank you so much. This
care.
has
Thank
been
you
great. Thank you.
so much.
Bye.